Hey everyone, welcome to the Active Towns channel. My name is John Silberman, and this is part 2 of my tour of Tucson, Arizona with city staff members Collin, Chesston, and Ryan Fagan. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. And hey, if you're enjoying this content here on the Active Towns channel, please consider supporting my efforts by becoming an Active Towns ambassador. Super easy to do. You can just click on the join button right here on YouTube or navigate over to activetowns.org and click on the support tab at the top of the page. Okay, folks, let's get right to it with my tour of Tucson with Ryan and Collin.
And we're lucky here in Tucson because a few years ago we passed a small fee on water bills that funds green stormwater infrastructure. So a lot of this stuff, not this specifically, but a lot of rainwater harvesting installations are being funded through that. It's a few $1 million a year, so we're really able to build a lot of stormwater harvesting basins, really kind of, doing that depavementing and putting in a lot of native landscaping, all over the city really, but particularly in areas that are more heat stressed, that are more disadvantaged, that have more people walking and biking who want to be able to take advantage of that shade.
Yeah. Fantastic.
So, the storm, if you love that sort of thing, we might be able to put you in touch with somebody who works for the Storm to Shade program.
Okay. Ooh, it looks like we have something new here.
This is actually really fun because as we go down this route, you're going to see like traffic circles in almost every stage of construction or deconstruction.
Wow.
Yep, they just poured this yesterday.
Very cool.
And then up ahead, this is a toucan under construction.
Oh, fabulous.
Looks like the guys are working today.
Yeah.
They put this pole in on Saturday.
Okay.
This was previously a conventional hawk, and we're turning it into a toucan so that it'll be easier for bicyclists to use on the bike boulevard.
Nice.
So this is a location where previously you had to get off your bike. There used to be a pole here and a button that you have to press. So get up, get off your bike, get on the sidewalk, press the button, and then use this crosswalk. It also meant that when you're coming in this direction, westbound, you have to cross oncoming traffic in order to access the push button.
Right.
So this new design is going to enable bicyclists to go into the middle of the street.
Okay.
And that's what makes it a toucan. And
right.
We'll visit one of those later.
Okay, fantastic.
So this might be a little tricky to get across during construction.
Okay,
we'll figure it out.
We'll make it work. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Looks like they're about to put a new pole in. Oh, look at this. Thank you, sir.
Nice.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, so they're excavating there. Found some underground utilities that we didn't expect and had to move a pole and lengthen a mast arm, but it'll all get done. It's pretty exciting stuff. We'll have some other features along this street, including some new speed humps. We'll have bicycle wayfinding, signage, shared lane markings, traffic circles. So really kind of completing this. This has been a long-term bike route in Tucson, but we want to make it a proper bicycle boulevard.
Right.
We're coming up here on this is a traffic oval. This is the first time we've done an oval instead of a circle.
Okay.
And that's because the street we're riding on is wider than the cross street. And so in order to get the vehicle deflection that we wanted and the slower speeds, we had to kind of stretch the circle out and make it an oval.
Yeah. It's all in the details, right?
That's right.
Love it. And again, more bike share stations. But yeah, what a great time of year to be here, guys. I mean, all these trees are in bloom, it's perfect temperature, and you really see how facilities like this, streets like this, can just really invite people to get out and ride for a good part of the year. I mean, I don't know if I would be riding here on your hottest days, but my gosh, maybe early morning, but This is really pleasant. This is really nice. I would hope that you guys are starting to see an increase in active mobility of people, starting to partake in using these facilities.
Yeah, as our network gets more built out and connected, I think people are starting to realize that, hey, this is really adding up to something that's useful.
Right. And I know that infrastructure is part of it. That's what I call the hardware activity assets. We've been focusing most of today on the hardware. Build the network out. The software is the programming and the encouragement and engagement and education activities. Who takes care of that in the city of Tucson?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so our regional government, the Pima Alliance of Governments, Pima Association of Governments has historically funded some of those educational and encouragement activities. So they do things like they have bike maps that they create and hand out for free. To be honest, I'm not exactly sure all the other things that they do, but I know that they've...
Yeah, they used to provide funding. I think they used to provide funding for bike to work month or bike month and bike to work week, and they used to kick in some funding for our Ciclovia events.
Right.
I think most of that has gone away, actually. But Living Streets Alliance is an organization based in Tucson that advocates for basically what you advocate for, streets for people, and they have been organizing ciclovias twice a year now, within the city, a lot of times showcasing bicycle infrastructure. Most recently, we're actually going to be going down the Treat Bicycle Boulevard, which is was completed a few years ago, and just a few weeks ago, Ciclovia was held along Treat. And so, that I think is really powerful because it introduces people to, a facility that they may not be aware of. This is really ovoid.
Yeah, it's another oval.
Another oval. Love it.
I think Ciclovia is probably the most powerful, outreach and engagement event that we have at this point, really.
Yeah, we just had one a few weeks ago this month. Yeah.
Yeah, and the estimates are that about 50,000 people attended.
Yeah.
So, and I think that was a 3-mile route, something like that.
Yeah.
So it was packed. I mean, it was hopping, and it's just so fun to see, so many people out there. I think a lot of whom, are learning about, this bicycle boulevard or this bike facility for the first time, and then they know about it, and they know, hey, this isn't that far from where I live. Maybe I can actually use that to get places.
Okay, let's shift and talk about infrastructure. What do we have coming up here?
Yeah, so this is one of our bike hawks. So this is normally this is just for a pedestrian, but here we've added the green markings and the wayfinding markings, and then you can see the button here that Ryan is about to push for us.
You want me to push it now, or do you want to stop?
Go for it.
Yeah.
Nice.
So you hit that, and it is an instant activation. And you can see on the far side, there's in addition to the pedestrian signal that says wait, there's a bikes wait or bikes okay, and it just hit bikes okay, so we can cross.
Nice.
So you can see this is a major arterial, a lot of cars going fast, but we have about a 97% compliance rate with these hybrid beacons or hawks. And so that makes it really easy for people to get across the street on a bike boulevard.
That's brilliant. Yeah, very responsive to us. Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, that's something that's really important, actually, is that almost all of pretty much all of our bike hawks and some of our other bike priority signals are instant activation. And that's just because you get much better compliance from both people walking and biking and from drivers, because a lot of other cities have them timed with their lights, and that just doesn't seem to work here. I'm not sure it works well there either.
Looking good, man. Thank you. Yeah. Looking great.
So we're lucky. We have some really great traffic engineers that we work with at the city, and who really keep this sort of thing in mind, and are kind of adamant that we keep them what we call hot button, essentially, so that if you want to cross, you're not going to push the button and have to wait 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Push the button, in 10 seconds, the cars have stopped and you get to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's super important.
And not to re-emphasize the obvious, but I mean that's the critical thing that we need, when we're talking about these bicycle boulevards and bicycle priority streets, is having a safe way to get across those monstrous roads.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is probably the most important feature.
Yeah. Well, I would say that it's hand in hand as important as making sure that you have the traffic calming, and so that we have lower numbers of vehicles and slower vehicles. Because if you don't have that, then even having a safer crossing at the road's not going to matter, because you're not going to have the participation. So lower numbers, lower speeds, and yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Most of our bicycle boulevards, most of our bike routes are on streets that get, maybe 200-300 vehicles a day.
Yeah.
So, oftentimes it's a little bit of a belt and suspenders where it's like, it's already, this is not a bike boulevard, but
yeah,
there's nobody driving on it.
Yeah. Well, talk about that a little bit, Collin, is that I see this in cities all over North America and all over the globe, is that many streets are just like this. They're not identified as part of any kind of cycle network, but they're just low volume, low speeds, wonderful opportunity to be, massaged and activated. And, and when I say massaged, is maybe a little bit of traffic calming here or there, a traffic diversion, to really make them sing and really expand a bike network overnight.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's exactly what we're doing on this street. So the route that we've been biking on is getting some more traffic circles, getting some wayfinding signage. There's already the bike hawk there that we just went through, but we're adding the Tucson, and we're going to be adding more of those crossings to other streets that are similar to this.
Yeah. Is there something philosophically advantageous to looking at a grid network like this and then just saying, with a paintbrush sort of approach to a bike network from a city's perspective and say, hey, you know what? Pretty much all these streets are green dotted, bicycle friendly streets. Have at it.
I think yes and no.
Yeah.
I think the advantage to that approach is that it highlights all the places that are bikeable. Yeah. The disadvantage is we only have so much money to spend on the crossing upgrades.
Right.
And so I think prioritizing the routes between the arterials that cross the arterials is really the key.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And I guess one of the things I would say to push back on that is there could be an infinite number of all opportunities to feed you to those crossings.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes when we have public meetings and people say, hey, no, I'd rather use this route, please change it.
Yeah.
And we say, well, yeah, that could be a good route. And for these reasons, we've decided to go with this other route.
Yeah.
However, you're welcome to use the route you prefer, and there's no disadvantage to that.
Right.
Until you get to the major street, and then you probably need to get back on the route so that you can hit the push button.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of what I'm leaning towards is when we have some of these more historic grid network of streets, is that literally, you choose. There could be any of these streets could be a delightful ride if it's low volume and low speed to be able to get to your meaningful destination.
Yeah.
And in some cities, it can also include some alleyways, which are a lot of fun to ride too.
Yeah. Most of our alleys are not paved, or the pavement has essentially been ignored for, 70 years.
So gravel grinding then. Nice.
Yeah. But a lot of our alleys in our neighborhoods are really cool because, a lot of them are planted. They're almost like little mini greenways. I mean, they're more like trails, but I see people, running in the alleys in my neighborhood all the time.
Well, in Montreal, they've been extensions of people's backyards. It's like, it's like the kids' play zone, and they are in the alleys, which is a lot of fun.
All right, we've hit Treat. This is Ryan's baby,
Okay.
Treat Bicycle Boulevard.
I love all my babies equally, but I do love Treat maybe the most. Treat and Silver Bell, I love them equally.
Yeah, Silver Bell was extraordinary. I can't wait to hear about Treat here.
Yeah, so Treat is one of the over 50 projects in the bond package that Collin mentioned that's funding, I think, well over, I think about 130 miles of bicycle and pedestrian improvements. So Treat was a reasonably well-used bike route for a long time. It connects to the University 3rd Street Bike Boulevard, which has been sort of one of the heaviest used bike routes in Tucson for decades. And since we completed it, we added bike hawks all along the route. We added traffic calming. It really has increased the number of people using it. We work with PAG that Collin mentioned earlier on regional bike counts, and we did some before and after measures, and we found that about depending on whether it's weekday or weekend, 2 to 4 times the number of people biking on there as there were before, and that was basically right after the bike boulevard was completed. So I imagine it's more than that now.
It's just lovely and pleasant to ride, and we should go ride it.
It is very lovely and pleasant to ride.
Yeah.
Sorry,
what are we doing just stopping? I mean, come on, let's go, guys. Yeah, let's ride. Yeah, let's check it out, Ryan. This is good.
Yeah, a treat. Coming up here is kind of about a half mile or a mile stretch where it's sort of the platonic ideal of a bike boulevard in Tucson. I think it's every other street. You've got a traffic circle, you've got speed humps interspersed. We were able to get in a raised crosswalk by a park coming up here. I don't know, it's just incredibly lovely to ride, I think. And you know, this is not one of our wider streets. It's only 4 lanes. It's not particularly wide, but as you can see, even at this relatively smaller street, it's really handy to have this bike crossing here.
Right. Now, did I notice that it picked us up, or did we have to press a button?
No. So that pedestrian back there, he pushed the button.
Okay.
So yeah, no, there's no detection at any of those. They're all push button operated.
Okay. And again, here's that traffic calming circle.
So this is one of those locations that used to be a stop sign. There used to be several stop signs along here.
Right.
And you know, it's funny. I used to avoid taking Treat. I would take an alternate street on alternate route on a collector street.
Right.
Because it was a chore before, really. It's like, you know, there was a hawk at the major street coming up here, but it was awkward to use, and then you had the stop lot, and there were more cars, and so all those things add up to little bits of stress to make it not pleasant to ride. And so once we came in and we traffic calmed and we added the hawks and everything, it just totally transformed the experience, and now it seems like it's just a pleasure.
Yeah, this is incredibly comfortable. I love the design. I love the frequent traffic circles here.
Yeah, and so this is an intersection of the Treat Bike Boulevard and the 3rd Street University Bike Boulevard.
Oh,
so these
wow, intersecting bike boulevards.
Yeah, so 2 of our most heavily used bike boulevards in the city. You can see we've got wayfinding pavement markings in addition to the signage. Those were not in our initial couple of bike boulevards that we built, but we found that especially on ones that have a lot of twists and turns, it's really helpful to provide that the extra bit of wayfinding help, because it's real hard to miss something on the pavement and something on the sign as well.
Yeah, fabulous. And again, connecting to the park. Very nicely done.
Yeah, we got another bike share station coming up here. And so this raised crosswalk here, this was sort of an opportunity to provide multiple benefits with this project. This was part of the Bike Boulevard project. Initially, we were looking at doing a speed hump in the area, and we thought, we can provide additional benefits. So wherever we can, we try to make it work for multiple user groups. Most of our bike boulevards where we place the hawks also works well for transit users. They're usually very close to bus stops, so
right, yeah.
we're making it much easier for people to get across 4-6 lane roads when they're taking transit as well. It's really nice to sort of to have there's layered benefits.
Yeah. Let's pull over right here on the corner. So Ryan, that was extraordinary. So that is the Treat Avenue Bicycle Boulevard project. Did I get that name right?
It's just the Treat Bicycle Boulevard, but it is mostly on Treat Avenue.
On Treat Avenue, yeah, mostly on Treat Avenue. Absolutely beautiful. Love all the features for traffic calming along the way there. We talked a little bit about that community input on that protected bike lane, the very first one that we saw here today. What do you all do for a project like this, bringing this project to fruition, were you involved with that, or what? Describe that process of the community engagement and education and bringing it to fruition, and what the community response was.
Yeah, so this project was paired with the 3rd Street University Bike Boulevard. So both of these were they already kind of had a built-in user base, so there was already a lot of interest. So we got a lot of people who came to public meetings for those projects, a lot of good feedback. But the way that we did the public outreach, at least initially, is we didn't show them plans showing here's where all these things are, here's where the traffic circles are, here's where the speed humps are. We kind of just showed them like a blank roll plot. We showed here where we're going to put the bike hawks, here we're going to put the crossing enhancements, and then you tell us what we need to know. We also did speed measurements and other things, other data collection, but really we were there to listen to people. What issues do you want us to address with this project? Where are there pain points where we could use some extra traffic calming, where we need to be aware of things and design accordingly. And I think that's a really great way to go, because it doesn't show people something that's sort of preconceived, or they go, it starts with the public and really listening to them. And so when we come back and have plans to show and have it laid out, when people say, why are you putting a speed hump there? Why are you doing this here? Why are you doing that? We can say, well, this is what we heard, or this is the data we collected that showed that there was a need for this. Right. And so that's how we generally like to do it with these projects, is not come in saying this is exactly what we're doing, because bike boulevards are retrofits. They're not. Everything is sort of working around existing infrastructure, and everything is sort of a bespoke solution to the existing conditions. And so basically starting with a blank slate and asking the public, what do you want to see, is a good sort of first step to that.
Right. And to your point, it's kind of an incremental enhancement or a change to an existing condition. We're just trying to reinforce safer, slower driver behavior and a more courteous environment, which encourages all ages and abilities to be able to get to their meaningful destination. So it doesn't feel like it's a major new thing.
Yeah, and I think the other way we try to talk about these facilities is, even though we call them bike boulevards, they're really a neighborhood traffic safety improvement. And so even if you don't ever ride a bike, it still has benefits to you if you live in the neighborhood, because the cars are going slower, it's a more pleasant place to walk, it reduces cut-through traffic, and just makes it safer for everybody. So
it's a really good point.
Yeah,
it's the framing of that. I mean, it almost begs, and I've had this discussion before, is should we be calling them something else if really what we're talking about is a people-oriented street, a more livable street? And many cities have adopted various names that don't include the word bike, which can be triggering for some people.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
we've thought about it. I think at this point we're too deep
into it. Yeah. Well, I mean, in the concept of like with the Netherlands, they call it a fietsstraat, which is a fietsbike, or a bike street, a bicycle priority street. But everybody knows that it's a traffic calm 30 km/h zone, and so it's more livable for everybody. Now, Ryan, I know we need to say goodbye to you at this point in time. Ryan, is there any final thoughts that you'd like to leave the audience with about what we saw today, or any other projects that you're working on?
Oh gosh,
just your final 10 seconds or.
Oh my God,
seconds.
I am so bad under pressure like this.
Well, you've been brilliant today, so I'm sure it'll be magnificent.
You're very kind, thank you. I guess my final thought is, it's Collin. I mean, I won't speak for Collin, but for myself, I feel very privileged to be able to work on these projects that really we see making people's lives better. That we see people riding with their kids, we see people jogging down streets that they wouldn't be able to. I mean, making all these improvements for livability that. I mean, I just feel so lucky to be able to work on these projects that I think are enhancing the quality of life here in Tucson.
Ryan, this has been so fantastic. Thank you so much for taking us on a little tour here.
Thank you so much. This was really fun.
This has been fantastic.
It's a beautiful day for it. Yeah.
Believe me, there's a reason why I chose this trip this week. It was the week where I wasn't interviewing a ton of people remotely for the podcast, and so I was like, okay.
Nice.
I am releasing an episode on Friday with Beth Osborne with Transportation for America, Smart Growth.
Okay, cool.
But I already recorded that 2 weeks ago, so.
Nice. So here's an example of where we have to cross, if there was an oncoming car here, we'd have to cross it in order to get to this push button.
Right.
So that's one disadvantage to this design, but the advantage is it's cheap and it's quick.
Right, yeah.
And so this is kind of our default. You'll notice this is a little bit of a different design where we have a raised center median island.
Right.
And so it allows people from the major street to turn left, but if you're on the bike boulevard, you can't go through.
Right.
So that reduces traffic on the bike boulevard.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of our goals.
This is a brilliant design. I mean, that's the whole point with these bike boulevards is if you're not doing some strategies that help decrease the volume of motor vehicles, then, you know, you're kind of working against yourself.
Yeah.
So you need to have some things that, you know, help divert some traffic away.
Yeah.
So,
bike's okay.
There we go. And now we're to the other side. And predictably, we're the only ones here, no cars.
Yep. Yeah, and so
that's the whole point.
Yeah, when you cross over at those bike hawks, the reason it works to cross over the oncoming traffic is because there's just not that many cars.
Yeah.
We wouldn't do that on a high volume street, but on a neighborhood street like this that we've made into a bike boulevard, it works pretty well.
Yeah, yeah. And how long have you been with the city?
I've been here almost 5 years.
Okay, fantastic. And your background is in engineering or planning, or what's your background?
Yeah, so my education is in planning. I have a master's in urban planning from Portland State University.
Okay.
I worked in the private sector for about 10 years for a firm called Alta that specializes in active transportation planning and design.
Absolutely.
So I did that for about 10 years, and then an opportunity here at the City of Tucson came up, and it was too good to pass up, and so I was living in Atlanta at the time, and moved here to come work for the city. And it's been really cool to see it on the public sector side. I think you're more intimately involved in the implementation of the projects.
Right.
And so, you know, a lot of times when you're doing planning, especially long-range planning, you create a plan and you hand it off to somebody and you hope they do it.
Yeah, yeah.
But they don't always do it. So when you're working on a bunch of capital projects and they're funded and they have public support from a voter initiative, it's really cool to, you know, mostly we're not convincing the public that this is a good idea.
Right.
They've already approved it.
Right.
We're just trying to talk to them about the details of what they'd like to see.
And make sure they don't freak out about said details.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as a wily veteran of 5 years, you know, coming from the private sector, any pearls of wisdom for anybody considering going to work for a city?
Oh, good question. I'd say do it.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, Ryan certainly expressed how gratifying and special it was for him.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you kind of feel a little bit of the same.
I do. And I think it depends on your personality and what kind of pace you like.
Yeah.
How comfortable you are talking with the public.
Yeah.
Your tolerance for slow-moving bureaucracy.
Yeah, yeah.
And all the things that can get into the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do
now we
really
have to
like
pause
it.
and talk about this.
Yeah.
Look at this.
Yeah, so these are chicanes.
I love it.
And what we're doing effectively here is we're trying to create like a one-lane bridge.
Yeah.
And so cars really slow down when they're worried that they might run into each other.
Yeah.
So.
And so I see that you strategically, if we look ahead, we've got a circle here, a traffic calming circle, and then another of the chicanes up ahead. As we roll past this second chicane, let's pull off to the side and talk a little bit about the results that you guys have found here.
Sure.
So when was this installed?
I believe this was installed in 2022.
Okay, 2022, just coming out of the pandemic. We see some of the car driver behavior there. That was nice. We're choosing to use this, but we could certainly go in that little area there near the curb.
Yeah.
Let's pull off to the side and let's chat a little bit about this. Yeah, so 2022, so these have been in for almost a good solid 3 years.
Yeah.
What are the results been?
Yeah, so we did before and after traffic counts, and what we found is that the median speed for motor vehicles dropped by more than 30%. Fantastic. And we haven't seen that good of a result in traffic calming with anything else we've ever tried that we've studied.
Now, in general, I tend to like chicanes because I do find them to be ultimately more effective and more comfortable to use as a bicycle user. Because compared to like a street calming speed hump or something like that, it's less jarring for me as somebody on a bike.
Yep.
But I also, as a driver, I think that they are more intuitive and help bring the motor vehicle speeds down as a driver or seeing other driver behavior, especially when you have elements like this, which are vertical elements with these trees that are planted here. And again, bravo to depaving a little bit, again, with that stormwater mitigation process. That's my personal observations and feelings. Anything else that you'd like to add to that, to talk about how the city has responded to this?
Yeah, I'll say they have not been universally adored by everyone.
Sure.
And sometimes that includes bicyclists.
Sure.
So we have these, what are 4-foot wide channels on the sides of the street between the curb and where the depressed planting area is. Mm-hmm. The intent of that is actually not for the bicyclist to ride behind it. Sure. Some do choose to do that.
Sure.
But of course, when you're riding behind and then you pop out and a car doesn't see you, that can be an issue from a visibility perspective. Yeah. So you'll notice there's no sidewalk here. So the reason we do that is because if somebody's in a wheelchair, we don't want to push somebody out into the street, or they're pushing a stroller with a baby in it.
I think that's brilliant, yeah.
So that's kind of the intent there, but we have had some bicyclists say, when you don't provide that channel, we don't like these, because then we feel like we're getting pinched.
Right, we're getting pinched over there. So being able to provide this channel, whether they use it or not, I could see, like if I had a child, I could see myself wanting to use the channel, the two of us go through there. But at the same time, if I'm just going myself like we did, we just intuitively took the travel lane because there's no cars there anyways. And if there were cars, they're going slowly, so yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes it doesn't hurt to have options to be able to take either path.
I love it. In other words, what we're talking about is mobility freedom. Once again, options.
Yeah, that's right.
A common theme here on the channel.
Yeah.
Mobility, independence, and freedom.
Yeah.
Love it. Go USA. I love this. I can't tell you how delighted I am to also see, the tree elements and some of the natural planting, and taking that opportunity to depave, little bits here and there. Talk a little bit about that. I mean, when you're looking at something that is really an active mobility infrastructure project, it seems like you are intuitively thinking, hey, is this also an opportunity for us to depave a little bit in this bulb out or in this area where we're doing traffic calming? Because you always, in the back of your mind, you're thinking about that next big storm event. And that's something that a lot of people may not know about Tucson, is that y'all are very, very dry. You're in various forms of drought almost constantly, but then, man, when it rains, it pours.
Yep, you're absolutely right. Yeah, so stormwater management is a big issue for us. We, unlike most cities, do not have an underground storm drain network that's extensive. So most of our streets don't have that. We don't have drains for the water to flow.
Right.
So our streets convey the water.
Right.
And so when we install things like this that harvest the water and feed the plants, that's a really positive thing, because it serves more than one purpose. It's traffic calming, it's shade that mitigates the urban heat island effect, and it helps a little bit manage the stormwater.
Yeah, I love it. This is beautiful. Thanks for showing me this.
Yeah, cool.
All right.
I want to show you Mountain Avenue.
Okay.
Because that's one of our, I'd say, legacy bikeways that I think helped put Tucson on the map. It was a buffered bike lane that has some pavers in it that provide a buffer. And that was done way back in the 90s, before anybody was really doing that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to show you that. That should be kind of cool to check out.
Let's see an old historic legacy bike lane. Yeah, and that brings up the point that, Tucson, along with Austin and a handful of other cities, around the nation here in the United States and around North America, have been an area that, people have gravitated towards, because it, does have a legacy and a history of being a place where, people kind of come to live a healthy, active lifestyle. We saw lots of runners earlier. There's a lot of people who come here to to raise their families, because it is an area where there's lots of hiking, there's lots of opportunities for biking, mountain biking, as well as on-road. Plus we see a lot of elite athletes, making their way to these places like a Boulder, like in Austin and Tucson as well. So there is that element of activity that's out there too.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, let's roll.
Let's go this way.
Yeah, when we saw those runners earlier, I'm like, those kind of look like they might be University of Arizona runners.
Yeah.
They were very fit.
Yeah, they did look like it was not their first time running.
No, those were, which I'm used to seeing in Boulder when I lived there, and also in Austin.
Yeah.
A lot of elite athletes.
Mike, can you reach that button there?
Yep.
There we go. Thank you.
All right, here we go. Another cool mural there. So what was it like adjusting to the desert environment for you?
That first summer, I thought I was gonna die. It's like you step outside, you feel like you're walking into an oven.
Yeah.
But I adapted pretty quickly, actually.
Yeah.
Your body gets used to it.
Yeah, I would say if you had been making the move from Portland to here, it probably would have been more of a shock than from Atlanta to here, because you had the heat and humidity there. So.
Yep. I'm gonna turn left here where this big truck is.
Okay.
Yeah, I really prefer the dry heat. Atlanta was a really cool city. I really liked living there, but the humidity in the summer was brutal.
Yeah.
They're doing a lot of cool stuff in Austin right now.
Yeah.
Building a lot of protected intersections.
Yeah, the history, I don't know how much of the history you know.
A little, but not a lot.
The sort of the similar path that you have been on here in Tucson and Austin's path. Austin was one of the original People for Bikes, Green Lane Project cities.
Yep.
Way back in the day.
Yep.
Then, like Tucson, they were a big jump city, and they continued to the Final Mile program from People for Bikes.
Okay.
Still with Kyle and Sarah.
Got it.
And so that relationship with People for Bikes, and then, with the trio that left People for Bikes for City Thread,
yep.
Zoe, Sarah, and Kyle, that's long-standing relationship. And what happened back in 2012 was the establishment of the relationship with the Dutch Cycling Embassy.
Yeah.
As part of that whole move.
Cool.
And so the city council really bought in on the concept of we're gonna build out a Dutch-inspired network.
Yeah.
And so now, 12 years later, 13 years later, there's a lot on the ground, and more coming every day.
Yeah, that's cool. It seems like their progress has been more rapid than most cities that at one point decided they wanted to be more bikeable.
Yeah. Well, a lot of things happen when you get a mandate from the voters too.
Yep.
When the voters approve the funding bonds, that's sort of like, you know, the voters have spoken. You mentioned it earlier.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, build it.
Yep.
We agreed to fund it, so build it.
Yep.
Hopefully the voters like what they see so far and want more.
Yeah.
But based on what I saw this weekend, I filmed our very first critical mass.
Oh, cool.
And there were over 250 people at this event. You know,
Nice.
It's just, you know, critical masses and open streets events. These are the types of things that really, you know, that's, again, I call them software activity assets. These are the types of things that really build support for the hardware. And so when it comes down to, you know, that community open house about a project going in, or the bond referendum that's on the ballot, people are like, yeah, I want this.
Yep.
You know, it's really frustrating that so many cities don't give enough attention to funding, you know, the engagement and education and awareness activities.
Right.
Because it really makes building and funding the...
Ben, you have a sec? This is our bike share guy and various other things.
Oh, good timing, Ben.
Pretty good, how are you?
Hey, Ben.
John Zimmerman with the Active Towns channel. Nice to meet you. Yeah. We were just talking about bike share, and lo and behold, look who rolls by.
You just need to say those words and I appear.
It is really, truly amazing how that all works. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name's Ben Elias. I'm a project manager with the City of Tucson Department of Transportation and Mobility.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And the rumor has it that somehow you're involved with bike share. Is that correct?
I am involved with bike share.
Oh my gosh.
We've had a bike share program here in Tucson since 2017. That's when the system was launched.
Yeah.
And it's called To Go Bike Share.
Mm-hmm.
We're right in front of a station.
It's perfect timing. I'm telling you.
I can't orchestrate this better.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a city supported system. So we, as the city, own the bike share bikes and stations. We have an operator who takes care of the day-to-day.
Okay, great.
And we also happen to be kind of changing some things around. The system hasn't changed dramatically over the years that it's been here.
Yeah, I'm looking at it, and it looks like these are the old... we're looking at the old Trek bikes? Is that what this is? Or this is
PBSC
Oh, it's
system.
The old PBSC system, so not the electric versions, the old iconic ones.
And our
go.
whole system still is our pedal bikes.
Got it.
We haven't had a ton of capital investment in the system, and we'd like to move that direction to electrify our system and expand it. But right now, one of the things that we're looking at is understanding where our stations have been and where they haven't been. And working in a few communities, a few neighborhoods that are interested in having something in their neck of the woods and understanding where some of our stations really aren't well utilized.
Yeah.
This one and the one just down the street, they happen to be the closest to my house.
Right.
But they don't get well utilized. So if we can put them in other neighborhoods where they'll get more utilized, the community can really embrace them and still works with the station density that we have. That's what we're looking at doing now.
Fantastic. Yeah, and we just made the switch over from an old B-cycle run system in Austin, Texas to the PBSC electric system, and it seems to be going gangbusters right now and integrated with transit as well.
That's the really cool thing is when we get those systems talking to each other and have the ability for someone to like hop off a bus or streetcar or light rail system and utilize bike share for those first mile, last mile solutions. That's kind of the goal.
Brilliant, brilliant. What sort of timeline do you have for sort of the revisioning process?
Yeah, so we are working through a 2-year grant right now with the Better Bike Share Partnership.
Oh, good.
They have this living lab cohort of cities they're working through different problems together. So that's Tucson, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh.
Nice.
So we'll have about another 1.5 years of that, and then that will kind of set us up for our future planning efforts if we want to expand or electrify.
Excellent. Thank you, Ben.
Thanks so
Appreciate
much.
it. Yay. We were just saying, Collin, you know, how perfect it is. We're rolling down, and then, you know, we want to talk about bike share, and we're in front of a bike share station, and boom, there's Ben. Just like
amazing.
that. It's kind of cool too, because it's like, this is what happens when you're on a bike. You can't have that kind of chance meeting when you're in a car.
Yeah, true. Good point.
I mean, it's feasible, I guess, but a little harder when you're not on a bike.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about where we're rolling down. This is pretty cool.
Yeah, so this is Mountain Avenue, and this has been here a long time. I think almost 20 years, but it's using a facility type that at the time was not standard, and that's a buffered bike lane. So it's got these pavers integrated into the surface of the roadway that create a buffer area in between the travel lane and the bike lane. So it just makes it more comfortable to ride down the street.
Yeah. At some point in the future, I could totally see being able to add just a little of this or a little of that to make this, you know, formalized as a true protected bike lane.
It's funny that you mentioned that because we're doing that.
Yeah.
So Ben, who we just talked to, is the project manager for that.
Okay.
And we're just about to kick off design. We need to do some stormwater analysis to figure out if placing a vertical element in that buffer area is going to disrupt the stormwater flow.
Okay.
Because of some of Tucson's unique challenges with stormwater, this is an inverted crown road.
Right.
And so we hope that it's not going to disrupt the stormwater flow, because it's the place where we want to put the vertical elements is further to the outside edge of the road. But we'll see. We have to do the analysis because we want to make sure we don't flood anybody's property.
Right.
But yeah, we're hoping to put in either some K71s, or maybe like we did on Silverbell, where we alternate the K71s with the precast curb that are doweled into the pavement.
It seems like it's ready-made for that. Yeah, once you get the analysis of the stormwater taken care of, I'm confident that a creative solution can be put in that works for everybody, because the real estate's been there and sort of preserved for all this time, so yeah.
Yep. This is a very well-used route, in part because it goes straight into the University of Arizona.
Ah, okay.
And it's a long north-south route, so a lot of people use it for commuting.
Which really, that makes it even more exciting of what could be for the future then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So Collin, it's seeming to me like we're rolling down this street here, still this legacy installation. Is it just me, or does it seem like the environment is changing a little bit? Are we getting closer to meaningful destinations or something?
We are, yeah. We're getting really close to the University of Arizona.
Aha. I had that sense. And so to your point, this is a critical connector. All the more reason for it to be an all ages and abilities facility.
Yeah, agreed.
Very nice. Yeah, there's some University of Arizona buildings.
Yeah, and we can come check out some of the stuff that the U of A has done to help promote bicycling too.
Oh, cool.
Watch out for the robot.
Yeah.
Do you guys have those delivery robots in Austin?
There's a few. It was good for us to help train it.
Yeah, that's right.
And not having to sacrifice our lives to do so.
Yeah. We're gonna turn left here.
Ah, lovely.
Yeah, so it's hard to do an undercrossing correctly in a way that feels really comfortable. Well, you notice this is nice and wide, You can see through all the way to the other end. There's light coming in, and there's actually sunlight coming through under Speedway in the median island.
Yeah.
So yeah, this feels really comfortable, and it's a lot more pleasant to cross than a 6-lane roadway.
How many of these high quality underpasses would you say you have here in the city?
Just 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So they're limited. Obviously, they're very expensive.
Yeah.
It's a lot cheaper to do a push-button crossing like a bike hawk.
Sure.
Or a toucan.
Sure. But cheaper isn't always better.
Agreed.
Yeah, one of the real brilliant things that Boulder has as part of their network is nearly 100 underpasses, high quality underpasses.
Wow.
And especially around the university, just like this one, it's a wonderful way to very safely and effectively getting students, staff, visitors to the university to meaningful destinations by completely removing them from traffic.
Yeah.
It's absolutely brilliant. Love to see it.
So I'm taking you now to a toucan.
Ah, fabulous.
See our first toucan.
The must-see toucan.
So this is a nice little path connection on the University of Arizona campus that takes us right to this toucan.
Sweet.
And so the toucan's similar to our bike hawk, but it actually uses a conventional red, yellow, green signal head.
Okay.
And then it uses bike signals instead of the bike's okay, bike's wait.
Got it.
But same thing, you roll up, you can push the button. Should be an instant activation, or not.
There it is.
There we go. Didn't take too long. And then you can see the bikes are actually transitioning here into the middle of the street.
Right.
And so you don't have to cross oncoming traffic with this style.
Right.
You just go from the center to the side.
Right, right. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
And then boom, here we are in a nice traffic calmed environment on a bicycle boulevard.
That's right.
Yeah.
And this is that traffic circle that Ryan was talking about, another really big one with more mature landscaping.
Yeah.
And then they just poured these chicanes yesterday.
Oh wow, brand new chicanes going in.
Brand new.
So again, we've got our mid-block chicane, we've got our traffic calming feature, we've got our toucan. What more could you ask for?
Living the dream.
Living the dream. Fantastic. Well, Collin, thank you so very much. This has been absolutely fabulous. And what better place to say goodbye than right here in front of a brand new chicane going in. And then we've got the really cool traffic calming circle there in the background, as well as a toucan. I mean, this is a threefer.
Yeah.
Again, thank you so much. Any final words from you for the audience about the work that you all are doing here in Tucson?
I think I'll just say, I think we're really fortunate here in Tucson that we've got some momentum. We have some efforts that have been underway for a few decades, and now we have some fresh funding to do a little more.
Yeah.
So we're always learning and always trying to improve, testing new things. And so I think in the next few years, you're going to see a very different network when it comes to active transportation, and it's pretty exciting to be part of that.
Any pearls of wisdom for other communities around the globe who are tuning in? They're faced with very similar challenges to what Tucson has, of a lot of auto-oriented designs and decades worth of car first roadway designs, but they're aspiring to turn over a leaf? Any pearls of wisdom from your 5 years on the ground working for a city, and then a decade plus of experience working for private firms?
Yeah, I think my advice would be start where there's already demand. Right. So, where you've already got higher density land uses, where parking is expensive, all the things that make it a little bit less convenient to drive. Yeah. If you can kind of double down on that and use those to your advantage. Yeah. Start where people will use the infrastructure. Yeah. And then build out from there. I think that would be my advice. Yeah. And take the low-hanging fruit where you can. Find the stuff that works and experiment, and if it doesn't work, do something different. And yeah. I'd say just keep at it, and eventually, you'll have a network that's going to be useful to a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you very much, and congratulations on all the success so far, and keep up the good work.
Yeah, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
All right. Boom. Yes.
Cool.
Good stuff, man.
Hey, thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed part 2 of my tour of Tucson, Arizona with Collin and Ryan. And if you did, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and share it with a friend. And for me personally, I especially enjoyed seeing the creative use of horizontal deflection of bulb outs, the traffic calming circles, as well as the chicanes. And love that they were able to do some de-paving efforts as well. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this, as well as if you have any examples from other cities around the globe that are doing a good job of this type of quick fix, easy to install, not super expensive. You're not completely redoing the entire roadbed, but creating traffic calming mechanisms and tools to help make the environment a little bit safer and more inviting for all ages and abilities. And if you haven't done so already, be honored to have you subscribe to the channel. Just click on that subscription button down below and ring that notifications bell. And if you're enjoying this content here on the Active Towns channel, again, please consider supporting my efforts by becoming an Active Towns ambassador. Hey, super easy to do. Just click on that join button down below here on YouTube, or navigate over to activetowns.org, click on the support tab at the top of the page, and there's several different options, including making a donation to the nonprofit, as well as becoming a Patreon supporter. Patrons do get early and ad-free access to all this video content. Again, thank you all so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. And until next time, this is John signing off by wishing you much activity, health, and happiness. Cheers.